Hey guys, it's Emma Vigling with TYT Politics, also Jordan of TYT Politics, you know.
How you doing, Fonzie?
There we
Very
go.
nice, very
yeah,
nice.
Yeah. It's a little before my time. He's old, so
Yeah.
he gets that reference. So let's talk a little bit about Rachel Maddow, who is, once the progressive media darling, as you like to put it. Last night she tweeted, "Breaking, we've got Trump tax returns tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, MSNBC, period. Seriously, in parentheses." Everyone kind of freaked out, thinking that because she'd done kind of extensive reporting on the Russia issue, that maybe these tax returns indicated something we didn't know about his financial Russia ties, which would make a lot of sense given the fact that everyone in his cabinet seems to be hanging out with these Russia people. So we were excited, but she didn't lead with that. It ended up just being the first 2 pages of his 2005 tax returns, which showed basically how he only made $150 million. I mean, that's nothing to stick your nose up at, and that he paid X amount in taxes. It wasn't that high. That's what the big story was when she literally tried to break the internet Kim Kardashian-esque style and say that they had the Trump tax returns. I thought it was extremely cheap. I bet her ratings went really high up, and everyone was freaking out about it, but it takes away her journalistic credibility in some way because she was alluding to something much bigger than she actually had, and it's the girl who cried wolf.
Ladies and gentlemen, they got her. They got her. They got to her. Rachel Maddow, I mean, if you listened to her on Air America back in the day, she might as well have been a communist. I mean, this woman was serious, hardcore in her bones, progressive, and, starting under the Obama age, when it was Keith Olbermann and then her on MSNBC, these are the people I watched back in my novice days when I was a little more naive. And I think...
And you loved Nancy Pelosi.
And I loved Nancy Pelosi back in the day. But Rachel Maddow has become a hyperbolic, hysterical establishment shill. I mean, she used to be great in terms of every other show would lead with the same, cable news story. And she would lead with some random story out of New Mexico that nobody's heard of. That's why I liked Rachel Maddow. But now she's just beating the drum on bullshit and Russia. And she totally, have you seen any segments on her show about, maybe the Democratic Party lost because they've lost sight of middle America, the working class, and are too indebted to Wall Street, big pharma, big oil? No. When she interviewed Hillary Clinton during the campaign, she might as well fluffed her pillow. It was so pathetic. And now this, which, cable news likes to hype up stories and make it seem like they have major breaking news, and then it's a little less, but even this goes beyond that. I mean, she was alluding to the fact that she has what every journalist has been trying to get their hands on for months, maybe a year, and basically she had what the New York Times already exposed, which was he makes a lot less money.
Yeah, and that's what I guess kind of the loser Donald angle of what people were trying to do during the campaign was to say, yeah, this guy's a fraud. People who are political junkies know he's a fraud. But we've moved on to the general election. The actual presidency. The guy is president. Donald Trump is President Trump. And you are all talking about these Russia ties, Russia. She does a segment pretty much every night on Russia, although I wouldn't really know if I didn't read Mediaite because I don't watch her, because I don't watch cable news, because I'm a young person and I like to keep myself sane.
You tell him, Fonz.
Yeah. God, he's really not going to let it go. But you know what? I've gotten a lot of compliments about this jacket.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So now I lost my train of thought. Can you rant? Go.
Well, here's the other thing. So Rachel Maddow, she is kind of like, she's a wonk, she's very wonky, and like the Harvard upper class liberals who live in Massachusetts, not offending you upper class Massachusetts viewers, but the Harvard yard and the limousine liberals, they love Rachel Maddow. And a lot of these folks are frankly older. I'm not knocking older viewers, but they're older. So when they watch Rachel Maddow, they are basically buying what she's selling as the most important thing. And this is why, my colleague Michael Tracy is going to town halls, and the top thing on people's minds is Donald Trump possibly being an agent of the Kremlin, which, by the way, I've said it's very likely that Trump has a lot of business dealings with Russia that he's trying to cover up. But that is a separate issue from did Russia hack the election and yada, 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 which I've told you I don't buy most of that baloney. So, but Maddow, a lot of older liberals, let's say Hillary Clinton's voting base, she is like their main meal for media. So the fact that she's leading her shows constantly on Russia and doesn't actually expose that, oh, the Democratic Party lost because they're bought off. Not that the Republicans are better, but obviously a fake populist was able to con people into thinking he was better. But Rachel Maddow, besides just the Russia stuff, she's not doing the job of what a journalist should be doing, which is reacting to events. A reality TV star looking Cheeto just beat, probably on paper, the most experienced person to run for president ever. And Rachel Maddow has barely looked into the root causes of that. Instead, it's Russia, and now she's going for like clickbaity tweets. And I think overall, that also is really symbolic of MSNBC, which back in the day I think was fairly decent, even further back than them trying to like suppress Cenk's voice. But during the Oberman days, I mean, he was one of the leading voices against George Bush's fake war. And progressives around the country, not just progressives, a lot of people rallied around Keith Olbermann. Keith Olbermann is who brought Rachel Maddow onto MSNBC. And they've gone astray. So, obviously we could be homers and say this is why watch TYT, because you don't get that crap. I mean, if I'm going to tweet something to try to tease it, I'm going to have a payoff. If I'm saying, hey, I got Trump's tax returns, or hey, I got Trump's dick size, I'm going to have the proof. It's not as big as you think, by the way.
Why would you make the viewers think of something so horrific?
Yeah, I'm just
it's like triggered.
But bottom line, Rachel Maddow, you're a loser. A loser. Okay? We're not winning anymore. You're a loser. Cut it out.
Okay, so what I was looking up while Jordan was saying that was Donald Trump Jr.'s statements about Russia and their financial ties there, because there is something that needs to be looked into, and what she was alluding to was this exact thing. So Donald Trump Jr. said in 2008, Russians make up a pretty disproportionate cross-section of a lot of our assets, referring to Trump's businesses. So that's significant. And when you say, I've got Trump tax returns breaking on MSNBC, 9 p.m., seriously, that means that when you've been doing this reporting on Russia, it has a payoff. That's what you're alluding to. That's your dog whistle. And she knew that, and it was a cheap trick. She was supposed to be an honest person on the net, on cable news, and she was back in the day, as Jordan was saying. But you know what? She's not anymore. And it's the kind of thing that we talk about here at TYT, is when you're in the room and when you're in the building with a certain kind of people for too long, your mindset and your mentality changes. So she's been literally at MSNBC for too long, and the establishment thinking has corroded her progressivism and has made her a different person. People change, and that's why TYT likes to say we're rebel headquarters. You want to always be rebelling against and challenging the establishment. When you create a culture of that, as opposed to a culture of sucking up to the establishment and sucking dick, then you're constantly challenging yourself to not go with the flow of establishment politics.
One more thing to wrap it up. I went to Flint several times, and to her credit, Rachel Maddow was one of the people who broke nationally the Flint story, and she focused on it and gave it a lot of time. People in Flint told me they've been begging her to come back. And a lot of the activists have sent email after email and smoke signals and everything to her show. So Rachel Maddow has this huge platform. I think she gets 1 million viewers a night, and has basically abdicated covering real news and real struggle and real crisis, by the way. As I've shown you, Flint is still a crisis. Don't make any mistake. It's not safe to drink that water. That's all EPA, cherry picking, the way they test and things like that. So Maddow has this huge platform. Supposedly, she cares about those types of stories, but instead she'd rather cover Trump every night. And I do think Trump's ties to Russia in terms of financial deals is important. That is worth covering, because that possibly means he's making decisions as president to enrich his business still, which is very clear he's doing that. So it definitely is deserving of coverage to look into, how much dealings does he have with Russia? Do they still have dealings with Russia? But Maddow has started many shows, and I've seen it, with the trying to basically make it seem as if there was this evil plot to elect Donald Trump, and somehow that's why the Democrats lost. And that's just dishonest. And that's basically propping up the Democrats' argument. And the Democrats' argument is dishonest because they're basically trying to change the subject from why they lost.
And just really quickly, because you mentioned Flint, you could talk about Trump related to Flint. Trump is cutting the EPA by a significant portion. What's it, 17%? Was that what it was? The EPA oversees water quality and things like that. So she could take a shit on Donald Trump by still talking about issues that matter, like Flint, which she's done good reporting on. But it's too hard and it's too taxing, and I'd rather just talk about Russia from my fancy studio.
Right.